All right, guys, I want to show you this video. I'm going to kind of skip through different parts of it to show you some more ideas about how to shade with colored pencils on your portrait. Keep in mind that this video will have colors that are very natural, very realistic, and I want you guys as much as possible to use colors that are expressive of an emotion or a feeling. And if you do end up using realistic colors in some capacity, try to make sure you incorporate lots of cool colors into the shadows, lots of warm colors into the lighter areas. All right, let's get it started. Okay, notice first of all how it's not burnished yet. See the texture in the paper, which is called the tooth of the paper. You see that texture showing. It won't show so much once it's more fully burnished. Your assignment is to burnish the most important parts of the drawing, especially the face, around the eyes. You don't need to burnish everywhere completely, though. It is a required part to do some burnishing. All right, notice how there's some purple that was added around the eyes. That's probably, in this case, because it's like an eyeshadow, a little hint of makeup. But that is a good place to use cool colors, even if you're not doing a makeup effect. Any shadow on the face is a good place to use cool colors, even if you're doing mostly warm colors for your portrait. One more thing to notice about the eyes is the highlights. See those little reflections in the eyes? If you shade the whole eye with the colors you want and then want to go over it with white colored pencil, that's not going to work. You kind of have to leave some white space in those little shapes uncolored if you want those to show up that bright and that white. In the eyebrow, I want you to notice that they're not drawing just a solid shape, they're drawing in actual hairs. In some places it looks more solid where there's a lot of hair. Other places where you can see through between the hairs, you can see the actual texture of each hair. When you do that, I want you to use a nice, really sharp pencil. Pay attention to the direction that the hairs go, too. All right, we'll skip ahead a little bit since we already saw one of the eyes. One thing I want you to notice here is the shadows around both eyes sort of define where the nose is. The nose is going to look like it sticks out more because it does. To do that, you need to have shadows around this part of the nose in between the eyes, and the nose will be quite a bit lighter than those shadows by the eyes. Also notice that around the bottom of the nose, you're going to see a lot more of a kind of a definition, almost outline effect. It will have more of a shadow effect in the end that will help show where the bottom of the nose is. Whereas you don't really want a line showing here on this part of the nose. You kind of want the shading here to more gradually blend into the shading that's here. It all depends on the lighting, but that's a general rule. Just don't outline this part of the nose. Upper part between the eyes and the very bottom of the nose, you can have a little bit more of a separation between the nose and the surrounding areas. And remember that you're going to be using lots of different colors other than the natural colors in most cases. No matter what you do, use lots of colors. I don't want to see any drawings turned in where it's just like one or two colors on the whole face. You should be using, I'd say, no less than 5 colors to shade the face. No matter what kind of color harmony you're using, even if you're doing sort of a monochromatic look, lots of blues and purples, use as many different shades of those colors as you can. Some of the detail that this person is drawing is going to be hard to see in a lot of your photos. If there's certain little details that you can't see very well in your photo, please grab a mirror or look at your phone or something and get like a live view of your face. Get those details more visible before you draw them. On the mouth, notice that the lower lip has some texture to it. If you look closely at your lower lip, you're going to see, even the upper one, but mostly the lower one, some texture and some kind of lines, little creases in the skin of your lips. So that's another detail to look out for. And if you're showing teeth in your photo, this might be something to look at. Notice the gums are like the main part that is separating the teeth. Try to avoid just outlining each tooth. Let the gums and the shadow below the teeth define the shape of the teeth for the most part. Pay attention to which parts of your face stick out and which parts kind of go in to the face. The lips stick out, so there's going to be, you see that highlight above the lip. Right below the lip, there's sort of a highlight, but then slightly below that, a shadow. Between the lower lip and the chin, it does kind of curve inward, so that's a place where you're going to have a little bit of a shadow. The eyes are set into the face, so there's a lot of shadow around the eyes. The nose sticks out from the face, so that's overall a lot lighter than the immediate surrounding area. Cheekbone areas stick out. Notice the highlight there. Okay, highlights on the cheekbones because they stick out into the light. And as that form of the face goes around, it's going to get darker as it goes towards the side and the edge of the face. Lots of blending, lots of burnishing. Before you press hard with full pressure, make sure you get those colors in there that you want. All right, one thing I want you to notice here is the paper towel. So instead of resting your hand on top of what you've already shaded, try to use some kind of scrap paper to act as a barrier between your hand and the drawing. That's especially important on colored or charcoal drawings, Conte crayon, graphite pencil drawings. But it's important here too, just so the oils of your hand is not rubbing into the colors that you've got on your paper. All right, in the hair, notice any little highlights in the hair. There's just small spaces that this artist is leaving white. For the most part, everything is covered with some amount of color. You definitely don't want to just start drawing lines for the texture of the hair because you're going to end up with something that looks just like this, but all over. You don't want just lines with white or whatever color your paper is showing through between them. For the most part, you need to shade a little bit more solidly with color and let just little tiny bits show through between the texture and the shading shapes in the hair. For some of the hairs around the outside, you're going to want a lot of pencils to be sharpened. You want those lines to be nice and thin, but still intense. If you have a blunt, dull pencil, it's going to be hard to get a realistic texture. All right, one thing I want to point out here, especially around the outside of the hair, see these hairs, I call these flyaway hairs, the hairs that are kind of outside the edge of the mass of hair, and even hairs that overlap the skin in some way. One thing you want to avoid here and on the outside is just a solid edge. If there's none of these flyaway hairs, it's going to look like your hair is made out of Play-Doh instead of actual hair. The texture of hair is going to have some of these little individual hairs that are on their own and some that overlap the skin. And they're just about done here. Okay, so in this area down here, make sure you are getting some dark values because there's shadow in there, but get some highlights in there too. Hopefully this helps, and rewatch it if you need to for some of those pointers.